was missing. Better late than never for you and me.
Welcome everyone to Coachinginsession. My name is Michael Reardon, and I'll be your mindset coach this evening. And oh boy, what has been going on in the world since our last show? And as much as I would like to get into that, that is going to have to wait because today we have a special guest. We have a men's coach. His name is Clive Maxheath, and wonderful guy. We had a wonderful conversation. And I do want to get into an interview because it is a lengthy one, but I do want to talk to you first about coaching. Because coaching is going to be unique to who you are as a person. You should have a coach that's going to complement who you are as a person. So that could be personality, values, etc. Now, for me, I am a former educator. I have worked with classrooms full of students from kindergarten all the way up to college. I know how to teach. Doesn't matter your personality. Now, what type of person am I? I'm a kind-hearted person. If someone ever talked bad about me, who knew me well, they would say, no, you got the wrong guy. You got the wrong guy. That's not Mike. Because they know who I am on the inside. And though that kindness is there, I have a very militant type of thinking. It's going to be done. It will be done. It should be done. I don't hold your hand. I don't say, oh, well, we can do it tomorrow. I will always instill in your mind that this is your goal. We're going to go get it. Now, you might not like that type of coach, and that's perfectly fine. You don't have to have that type of coach. Pick the coach you need. And there's so many coaches in the world. Men's coaches, women's coaches, coaches who have a personality like mine, coaches who are more caring and loving and affectionate. Choose the person you need. And you know your personality, because your personality with the right coach is going to help push you. It's going to create a momentum for you. And when people start to work with me, they listen to a podcast or they see an interview and they say, Michael, what you said really resonated with me. That's how it feels. When the coach is speaking, you should feel, wow, he's saying exactly what's going on in my mind. She's saying exactly what's going on in my mind. And one of the things I want to do with this podcast is get like-minded coaches, people who want to help people. And I find it interesting still. You would think if someone's a coach, no matter what, they're going to do everything in their power to get their voice out there. For example, do an interview, be a guest on a podcast, appear for a show, be a guest in an article, things like that. But there's many coaches, many people who only see the benefit for them. Maybe they're at a point in their life where they say, I know what I want, I know what I don't want, and I want to make sure I'm in the right place. That's a possibility. Now, there's going to be people who are looking only to gain something. So those are going to be people who look at your subscriber count and they say, oh, you don't have enough. Or you have a lot. Hey, have me on your show so I can get some more subscribers on my channel. Now, for me, it doesn't matter how many subscribers someone has. You can have 1 billion. You can have 1. If you ask me to be on your show and I'm available, I'm going to be on your show. Because I have a message. And that message is we don't have to allow limiting thoughts or beliefs to continue in society. And I don't care where I do it. And it could be on opposing networks. So, for example, CNN and Fox News, for example, they have a different viewpoint, right? InfoWars and ABC has a different viewpoint, right? Who's right? Who's wrong? No one. Somewhere along the line, we forgot how to be cordial and have cordial conversations. And that's going to be a detriment to society because if people can't come together, how can we grow? Because we already talked about it on previous podcasts, we need people to grow. And I invite coaches to come on to say their part. Now, I might not believe everything they say. I might not be pro everything we spoke about, but I'm still able to be cordial. I'm still able to have a great conversation and see their viewpoint. Now, just because I see their viewpoint doesn't mean they change who I am. And I want to offer different alternatives for people. So you can say, oh, I'm going to go over to Coachinginsession, check out the interview tab, and let's see what coaches Michael has interviewed, has spoken with. And guess what happens? You're going to get a pool of people who might have a personality that you like, that resonates with you. And if that's the case, reach out to them, work with them. You don't have to work with me. It doesn't matter if you work with me, if you work with Clive, if you work with Mark Noblet, Andrew Tody, whoever you want to work with them. I want you to work with them. Now, that being said, if you're the type of coach who doesn't want or doesn't have something to say, you just help people because it's a job. Okay, I'm going to find out. And I do find out. And maybe it's because I don't put every interview that I do online. Now, sometimes there's going to be a conversation and the conversation just doesn't go good. I can't endorse someone who can't even do the work themselves. I hold people accountable. Doesn't matter who you are. Whether you work for me, whether you don't work for me, you're going to be held accountable. Now, if you're a doctor, for say, you're going to want your doctor to give you the best advice. Now, if he doesn't, what do? You file a malpractice suit because he wasn't doing what he was supposed to do, he or she. And the same thing is going to be similar to how I have my guest coaches. I hold their feet to the fire. How do they think? How do they operate? And I'm happy to say that Clive is a great guy. He has a family, wonderful family man. He knows how to pivot. He works well with people. And he might have a personality that's right down your alley. So if you want to work with Clive after the interview, reach out to him. His links are in the description box below. And if it's not for you, don't worry. I'm going to have more coaches on that have something to say. They have a message. And that message is that they want to help you. This podcast is not to conform the world into my way of thinking. It's to help people and lift them up. That's the goal, to help people get to where they want to be, to where they need to be. Because in life, we have a destined place. We're not just walking around this earth for no reason. We have a purpose. I help people find that purpose. So if you're interested in finding your purpose, if you're interested in being more than what you are right now, reach out to me. Whether it be an email, coachinginsession@gmail.com, doesn't matter. What I want for you is to find a way to get out of your slump, to get out of your mediocrity, to get out of your complacency, and to seek more in your life. Clive Maxheath to Coachinginsession. Thank you so much for being a guest. How are you doing today?
I'm very well. Thank you, Michael. Pleasure to be here and look forward to seeing where this conversation takes us.
Definitely. So I know a little bit about what you do, but if you can, just please tell the people what you do for work and maybe some of your life experiences.
Cool. Yes. So I am a coach, a self-employed coach, and I'm a little bit of a hybrid coach. So on one side of my business, I am a men's life coach, and I have been in some form or another for the last, 9-10 years. And then the other side of my business, I'm an executive coach, primarily working in the public sector. So I do some work in education, and I have a policing background, so I do some coaching work there as well. Finally, in a voluntary capacity, I am the mental fitness coach for a local American football team, London-based, the London Olympians. Shout out to them. And so I do some work there with the players there around their inner game, their mental game. And I'm currently training to become a sort of more a coach around the physical stuff, looking at special teams. But we won't be talking about that today. But so yeah, I like to. I'm a bit of an all-rounder, really, Michael. That's one of my values. So
okay, perfect. Yeah. You said that you were a men's coach. Why not a women's coach?
I think that I actually get this sometimes. Like I have had women come to me and say, "Why don't you coach women?" It's like, well, I do coach women.
Exactly.
As long as we're a good match, I'd coach a hamster, Michael. But I guess I've chosen to point my practice there, essentially due to my own experiences being a man, and some of my stories with my backstory with regards to personal development, particularly, and doing a lot of work on my own initially for a number of years, which I know can be a pattern of the male psychology, to kind of go it alone and ask for help at the last minute. It still happens today. I lost half hour last week in Tesco's looking for some peanut butter that's a supermarket. Could have asked for help, but it's still a weakness. But and I actually really came into personal development in a relationship sense through joining a men's group. And that became a vehicle that really helped me through a tough time. And then when I look back, I actually I went to an all boys school, and I think that plays into it. I'm kind of was spent quite a lot of time in that sort of male environment, and I'm a big sports guy, and I've been on male sports teams. So I think there's a number of different threads there, and I've always been interested and fascinated by the male psychology, and some of the unique, and was keen in my mission with my coaching to create a coaching practice that factored in some of the unique elements of the male psychology. So yeah, that's a long story medium.
No, this is fine. So when we look at like a male coach versus a female coach, it's interesting, right? Because of course we think differently. And in our current society, I know here in America, I'm not sure how it is over in London, we have a fight, right? Whether they be feminist or just the whole women's movement, where they're trying to be equal to men, or they're saying they're not equal already. And I find that to be interesting, because I don't see anyone in the world as inferior to who I am. I'm just a person. You are a person too. And to have a men's coach, right? To have someone who's going to be there to say, hey, you are worth something, because we don't have many people like that in the world. Men go through life early on saying, don't cry, be brave, be tough, be a man. And just thinking about that, what does that do to the mind? You said that you weren't in the grocery store looking for some peanut butter, and you didn't ask for any type of direction. But if the shoe was on the other foot, per se, and there was maybe a woman in the store looking for peanut butter, would she ask? So can we go down that psychology of what a man think he is, or who he should be?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot here, Michael. But I'll give you a few early thoughts. I mean, I'm not someone who kind of sees it as an us versus them piece at all. I think maybe there are some social conditioning pieces here that definitely play out. And I think my wife, particularly, she educated me around some of the social conditioning that she's had as a woman growing up, and some of the things that have been projected to her maybe by media about who she should be. And I think that there's some social conditioning there from the male side as well, particularly I was born in the early 80s, so some of the messages I got as a young boy, sort of teenager, was very much, you know, that old school kind of, even in the movie, in the films, for example, you know, Rambo,
Oh yeah.
men going it alone, and it's not always the most serving message. There's a balance there. There is something about being independent and taking care of oneself, but it all kind of feeds into it. And I think maybe where it kind of, some of the conflict comes up is where there's maybe a misunderstanding in terms of different social conditioning, different cultures, and different life experiences. So I'm kind of with you. What I'm hearing from your side was, it's like I see myself as a unique individual. I'm a man, and I've had a unique experience, and it's kind of, I'm working through my own stuff. And I think it's important. I enjoy spending time talking with other people about their experiences, and I'm constantly changing my view in terms of, you know, understanding sort of various things, whether that's sort of gender, race, different economic classes. It's a constant education and re-education. So yeah,
I find
that's
on
kind of
both.
my view on it.
Yeah, I find on both parts, whether you're dealing with man or woman, there's going to be certain stigmas attached to each of the sexes. So a man is going to have to deal with a certain type of certain types of difficulties, and a woman's going to have to deal with her certain type of difficulties. And that doesn't make us any different people. It just makes us different in how we have to operate, right? How we have to see the world.
Yes.
So a man, of course, he might say he has to go to work, provide, protect for the family. That's a traditional role. And the traditional role of a woman is going to be at home, to take care of the kids, take care of the house, things like that, right? And we're starting to step into a world, or to a modern era, where a woman can take up a man's role, right? She can be
yes, very much so.
She can be the provider easily. She can make more money than a man easily. And a man can easily take the role of a father, stay-at-home dad. And there's nothing wrong with that, but the stigma on it is interesting. And then we even go a step further. Now we have the modern woman saying that she wants to have a traditional man, but she's not willing to be a traditional woman. Do you think that is something that's going to be affecting generations to come if we still keep that mindset? So just thinking from the men's coach example, if a man wants to be a traditional husband, should he look for a traditional wife, or can he have a modern type wife?
I mean, this is about it's about the negotiation of a partnership of the team. And what I would probably invite, that if was it a modern woman wanted was it a traditional man?
Yeah.
Then they're more than likely is some negotiation required there. But because for her to remain a modern woman and be that, there's a conflict in those two roles. So
exactly, yeah.
I do think in terms of some of the old messages maybe men have had or culturally had, it can be quite a confusing time for guys. In a sense, maybe they've been modeled something different to what maybe the expectations are now. And some men, and myself included, I'll name this, have had some challenges in terms of, well, where do I fit into this? Because I haven't maybe prepared myself for it, or actually, what does this look like as a role and my approach to that role? So for me, it is about boundaries and about negotiation and about finding that partnership.
Right.
And what I maybe do see sometimes out there is maybe some projections either way, in terms of maybe a traditional couple thinking what maybe a kind of quote unquote modern couple is doing is not right, and then vice versa. And it's not right or wrong. It's just about finding our individual place in this, and then having those negotiations and being clear on our boundaries in terms of how we want to design our partnership.
Right. Definitely.
And be on the same side.
Definitely.
And that takes work. and can be really difficult, and has been for me personally at times. But when we negotiate and move through these things, then we're certainly better for it. And I maybe would suggest that, maybe because we as men don't necessarily, depending on where we end up, slot straight into that traditional role. It's more complicated. There's some real opportunities here for men around how men might maybe show up as fathers, maybe the opportunity to be more hands-on than they may have been in the past, which I certainly am, in terms of my role here. So yeah, it's maybe more challenge, but more opportunity.
Yeah, definitely.
I would invite.
Yeah.
That's my opinion. What's your opinion, Michael?
My opinion is that each other has to complement. So if you have a traditional type man, then of course you should be looking for a traditional type woman. Now, there's a caveat to it. A traditional man can be with a modern woman, as long as the modern woman understands that the man is a traditional man. So he's looking to be the leader. And the modern woman can still be a leader in her job, her peer relationships with her friends. But when it comes to the relationship, she does have to take a step back and be one step behind him. And it's not that she's inferior. It's just that he wants to be a traditional man. He wants to lead. He wants to protect her. He wants to provide for her. And she should allow it. She should just let him be the man he's looking to be. Now, if he wants to be a modern man, and it doesn't matter his role, whether he's side by side, ahead, behind her, that's fine and all, but that does have to be spoken to before the relationship begins, as in like it's developing past the dating phase. Because if you're looking for marriage long term, you have to figure out, why do you want to be married? Because if we look at the institution of marriage, it's the best form of bearing and raising children, right? Children who grow up in a two-parent household do better statistically. So if we're going to have a world of single mothers because they believe that they can be independent and that their man ain't the S word, then of course we are going to be going down in society, because our children are going to be the people who are going to be the next generation leaders. So if they're not getting the best end of the deal, then how are we as a society going to be stronger in the future? And I always think about that. And that's what I do a lot with my business. I work on limiting beliefs that stem from when a child is young. And it happens not only in the schools, but it happens in the household too. So I'm more interested, if we are having a relationship with someone and we bring a child into this world together, we need to be able to work together at some capacity. And if we can't come to a common ground and work with each other, it's going to be difficult for that child to get out of that negativity, that trauma, because divorce or separation does so much to a child that many people don't even realize.
And it's a practice, right?
Definitely.
Yeah. I think that's the thing, it's ongoing work. I mean, the one thing I would sort of, invite maybe an observation there, which you said, like this idea of kind of the male being the leader and being behind. But I wouldn't invite like that. I mean, in some ways, like let's say traditionally the male might be the leader in terms of the work and bringing in the money, but the woman's the leader of the home.
Of course.
That's
the traditional. This was what I was talking about.
So like maybe the male's quote unquote, I wouldn't even say in front, but maybe depending on the realm, whether it's work or home, then those who's in front is like who calls the shots.
Exactly.
is kind of like that will change. And something I also observe is like this idea of it doesn't necessarily, just because the roles are established, it doesn't mean they can't transition over time. I mean, I've experienced that I have a 3-year-old, and so and then when my 3-year-old was first born, my wife took the first period, the first 8 months with him, and then I took the back period, and I had 6 months with him stay at home. So it's like at given points, like in the different realms, things shift. It's not this kind of set necessarily. This kind of this is your life now. You're this, and this is your role. It might be, but it's No, I hear that in terms of that communication piece.
It's all about balance. I think it's like the yin and the yang, right? You can't have the good without the bad. And in a relationship, you have to have compromise. You have to be able to willing to see where they are too, because if you just kind of say, all right, I'm the boss and whatever I say goes, then it makes it difficult for the other person to have some imagination or some identity in the relationship. And as you were saying, of course, if you have a traditional role as a stay-at-home wife, it doesn't mean you're less of a person. It doesn't mean that you're always going to be behind your husband, because when it comes to anything in the household, you have to say, right? If we look back at, I believe it was in the 50s, the men would come home and they would give the check to the woman. And then the woman would use that to buy food or anything the house needs, right? So he goes to work, gives her the money, and the woman does what she has to do with the money. And he doesn't have any say. If she wants to buy a new sofa, he doesn't have any say. If she wants to buy new curtains, he doesn't have any say, because that's her realm. And he's not an expert. He's not an expert in that realm either. She has been living it. She, that is her domain. And when we become experts or professionals in an area, step back and let the person who's most qualified to do it. And that could be man or woman. It doesn't have to be by sex. It's just by what are you expecting to have out of this relationship.
Yeah, and I mean, I do, and one of the things I work through, I work on with guys. One of is health, primarily health relationships and career. Like a lot of life coaches, those are the three kind of big hitters. And yeah, when I'm working sort of around relationship, a key part of that is to get the client into the feet of the person they're potentially in conflict with, to kind of feel into that perspective and what might be going on for them. Because I know I can very easily get kind of pigeonholed on my agenda, what I want, and so that kind of, which is important to name. I mean, kind of it's but it's that kind of stepping out of ourselves for a moment and then into the other side, and that's obviously something like I'm sure you're aware, Michael, that coaching can help with. But rich topic, Michael. We could be here a long time talking about this one.
Yeah, definitely. And it all stemmed from the difference between a male coach versus a female coach. And I have I have acquaintances, as friends I went to school with, who are female coaches, and they work with primarily females. And it doesn't mean that they can't work with men. They give great advice. If you ever speak with them, very knowledgeable, accurate, wonderful people. So it doesn't necessarily mean that if you are a woman, you can't work with a male who is primarily working with men, because that's not the case. They're going to be able to hit the blanket across the board. Now, when you just specify that's your specialty, it doesn't necessarily mean that's the only thing you're able to do.
No,
so that's what I was really going for, is that just because you're a male coach doesn't mean you can't work with women also. So if any woman is trying to get a perspective on a man's side, Clive is your guy, because he knows what he's talking about when it comes from the male perspective. And when men come to you, though, what type of issues do they commonly come with? Is it about relationships, careers, just self-betterment?
Yeah, it does tend to fit under one of the three of career, health, and relationships. Career is a big one. And I think it was interesting, over here, as part of the British Psychological Society, his last year before last, they now have a male psychology department. And through their studies there, in terms of what men value, work came top. And that, I think I've definitely experienced in that in my coaching, in terms of probably, at least initially, and this is where it starts, Michael, initially it is career-based matters, at least in the last year or two, sort of 50-60% of the time. What then tends to happen is, as we get into the work, then other areas come online, be that health or relationships. So Yeah, but those are the three main ones, and I'd say work and career is number one, at least in the last few years.
Hmm. And when a man comes to you and he says, "Hey, Clive, I have some career problems," and he might say, "I want to get out of my job. I don't like my job." That's an example. Or he might
Hmm.
say, "I want to grow in my job, promotion."
Hmm.
Do you think it depends on the person if they want to go seek their own business or if they want to seek promotion in their current position?
I mean, it's individual by individual basis,
Hmm.
and what I would be seeking to do is to get under the surface in terms of what that promotion might mean with respect to their values, with respect to what that then means for in other areas.
Hmm.
Um, and at the beginning of my coaching, we always look at a complete picture. So although, like for example, the goals that the male say the male wants to focus on career goals, we will look at the whole piece before
Okay.
we dive into that. And yeah, I'm always interested in how does this play connect with in terms of values and that inner leader part of themselves as well,
Mm-hmm.
who they are from a being perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And so the goals that we would establish are always not only the doing goals and what would you like in place in, I don't know, for example, 3 months time, but how do you want to feel?
Mm.
What would it feel like to have that promotion? And sometimes when we feel into that, it actually doesn't feel very good. um,
Yeah.
Oh, actually, yeah, I'd have 8 people under me and I'd be really stressed. And actually, for the money, it's probably not worth it. So,
Mm-hmm.
and part of it would be maybe, yeah, it's some exercises to take them into that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Have them body, what does it feel like? Take them there,
Right.
in terms of future self. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's really important to have some feeling on your career, but then to look at what is going to be the outcome if you go and seek it. So if you want the promotion, how do you feel when you get that promotion? Do you feel happy? Do you feel intrinsically fulfilled? Do you want to seek more promotion? Was it enough? And just getting to that point is so valuable because then we get to have a good understanding of what we really want. Because I can't tell you how many people think they know what they want and then they go ahead and they go get it and it doesn't make them happy. It doesn't give them the fulfillment that they were looking for. And if you think about high school kids, for example, who are going off to college, they might not necessarily know what they really want to do in life. They might have an inclination. They might say, "Well, I'm good at math, so I guess I need to go into business for accounting or finance." And they do it and they hate the job and they're just miserable in their job. And now they feel stuck. They have 4 years of education and they say, "I have $60,000 in student loans. I have to go into this career." And then now they have a wife and kid. They are in a hole per se. What would you say to someone who is in that hole and they want to get out? They want to feel good. They want to find a job, a career that they can feel happy in, but they also have to handle their business and take care of their wife and their kid and provide for the family.
There's a lot here, Michael.
There
It's a
is.
very good question. My goodness. Yeah, there's a lot here. Well, there's a number of things that fire for me here. The first thing is by recognizing
Hmm.
that they're not happy here,
Hmm.
that this isn't what they enjoy, is the first step.
Mm.
And so, like, they already have feedback. Like, what is it about what they're currently doing that they don't enjoy,
Hmm. Definitely.
and what is it they do enjoy
Hmm.
in their work? Oh, do you know what? Like, 4 out of 5 days, I really don't like my work. But that one day, when
Mm.
we have that meeting and that thing happens, and something happens.
Mm.
So there's that in terms of working with that feedback,
Hmm.
and then the through what you don't want, working out what one does want.
Hmm.
The second thing you've said here is it is about one's personal situation. So it's very different to be. I know it was for me to be 21 years old, living at home with my parents,
Hmm.
single. I've got a lot more freedom then. I've got a lot more choices to
Hmm.
make. When one has, a marriage, a mortgage, student loan responsibilities, children, the choices are going to be more limited. However, there are choices, and it's about looking at that long game.
Hmm.
What can I do where I am? what can I do where I am, and building from there. Like, how can I create, half hour, an hour a day to work on this thing, where I do want to head, and playing that long game. And it's not, I'll say this, Michael, the long game is not sexy. You won't see it pushed around that much. But small steps take us to far places. And for someone in that place, I would say, life is short, but life is long. And so let's start shuffling. Let's start making small steps, and also look at, what's possible where you are. How can, what, in terms of getting into that value system again, what lights this person up, and let's get that into, they really like, I don't know, like presenting. I think a lot of people don't like presenting, right? But they do. Public speaking. Well, what's available to them in the realm of, I don't know, let's say they're in accounting, that enables them to go and publicly speak about certain elements of accounting and have them on stage. And it's breaking things down, and doing what we can where we are. And you've mentioned the word balance, which is a huge value of mine. It all comes with. So this isn't about changing career at the expense of one's health, marriage, being a parent, and everything else. It's about slowly transitioning and looking at the 5, 10, 15, 25 year time span. Again, it's not sexy. But in my experience, small steps lead us to far places. And that's what I've observed in my own life and career, and have assisted and had experiences with clients around that as well.
Yeah, definitely. And it's difficult to be in a place where you feel stuck, where you can't, where you don't see an option to get out. And people are going to say, well, I have to stay in this job because I don't have a choice. I'm stuck. I can't move. And the power of what you said, just taking those small steps, it can be the difference between being unhappy for the rest of your life or being unhappy for 3 years. Big difference, right? Because 3 years in the span of it, that's a long time. Like if we just think about it short term, like 3 years, that's a long time. That's going to be like too much time. Because if we think about like our kids growing up, and from when they're a little baby to they're 3 and they're running around and they're saying no to you, you're like, wow, time is flying. And before you know it, they're going to be teenagers and they're going to want to go out and drive and have cell phones. And you're like, man, where did my little, kid go? And before you know it, now they're off to college and they're moving out and they're having a family of their own. And you're like, man, I'm getting old. Time flies.
Michael, stop it.
Time flies. But when we can focus on the moment that we're in, we can look about it. We can look everything about this moment. And you said something really important about knowing what you want and what you don't want in life, because if you know what you want, then you can go for that. But then if you know what you don't want, then you know what not to allow in your life. And people just kind of go through life thinking, well, what do I want? What do I want? And then they have things that they don't want in their life coming in, and then they feel heavy still. They feel a sense of that they're not making progress because they're having this anchor hold them down of all the things that they don't want in their life are just dragging them down, but they still want to reach for other things, but they're just so heavy. So they have to lighten their load. They have to let go of the things that are not going to help propel them and bring them to the people that they want to be. And I find that to be most difficult for people who have a hard time letting go. They are comfortable where they are. They say, this has been working for me and it's been good and I have an okay life. Complacency, right? And I understand complacency. I have been there when I was a teacher. Of course, I had my income and it was a good job. I loved the job, but I still wanted something more. Even though intrinsically I was fulfilled teaching. I loved going in every single day to school. But there was just something knocking at my door saying, hey, open up, open up. And I was in my comfort zone. I was like, no, everything is good. I don't want anything. It's sort of like the salesman coming to the door. He wants to, give you something, sell you something. And you're like, no, I'm good. But what he has to offer maybe could be something that could change your whole life. It could make your life so much better than what it currently is. And sometimes we have to be brave, and we can't let fear be the determining factor if we take action. And you have to have that fear to push you out of your comfort zone. And then once you get out, understand that you are powerful. And I do want to touch base with you on the male coach side. How
Yes.
how important is it to help men understand that they are powerful, that they are meaningful, that they mean something? Because all their life they are told not to cry. They're told man up. Is it something that you have to remind men of, that they are worthwhile, that they have meaning in life?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Sort of. I guess not. Sort of not directly, Michael.
Mm-hmm.
In at least in my work, but there is, um, I guess a big part of sort of how I work and have developed to work,
Mm-hmm.
is that it's not just about the goals.
Mm-hmm.
It's about the mission and the vision.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's, um, goals are good, and having goals and having sort of like, yeah, having the finishing lines laid out, and being process focused, which is the most important thing. But I think it's like, what's the change I want to see in the world?
Mm-hmm.
And starting outside of ourselves, which is where the true meaning becomes. It's nice to achieve things like, I mean, I'd run a marathon, or I know in the physical sense, or achieve something over here in business, but it's like, it almost like it really takes off when it's about like seeing and evoking change in the world,
Mm-hmm.
being part of that change, um, and then working back from there,
Mm-hmm.
in a sense of, well, then what's the mission, and then what are the goals, and then what are the tasks, and having that as the purpose, and having that as a start point.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a big question. I mean, and there's a lot of changes that I would love to see in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm focusing on this one.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the change I want to see in the world is people knowing what coaching is,
Mm-hmm.
and knowing when to access it, because it's not for all of the time. And that's again, that's an opinion,
Mm-hmm.
but at least be able to make an informed decision about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then looking at just increasing the amount of people that can access it, because at the moment, you know, there are financial barriers for a lot of people, and starting to look at ways that people can tap into it. But yeah, there's definitely something around that vision piece and the meaning,
Mm-hmm.
that I'm not just doing this for me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing this because I want to see, you know, I'm doing it for them, and to see that change, and that has a very different energy to it when you really get clear on that.
Mm-hmm.
And that is fuel to the fire,
Mm-hmm.
in a sense of some of the fear, some of the battles that we're talking about, that daily battle, that practice. I was in there are some synchronicities. I was in a job, very invested, job, very highly trained, but I knew that I liked it. I was good at it, and I had a good way, but I knew that I wanted something else.
Mm-hmm.
It was a felt sense, and it was like, once I just started scratching and pulling, and it took me years to get here, and then I might want to get over there. And I think there's that thing with regards to the I wants don't necessarily stop.
Mm-hmm.
I think I find there's an I want, and then I go through the sort of hero's journey and pop out the other side, and I'm pretty cool for a bit. And then there's the next I want, and it just kind of, and that's cool as well.
Yeah.
That's the growth mindset. That's the human being.
Mm-hmm.
That's the process. You know, life is but if a life lived well is just but, you know, hero's journey and a break. Hero's journey and a break.
Definitely. Yeah.
So,
it's always a new goal to reach for. And
yes, and that's okay too.
Yeah.
Where it gets unhealthy, and I've had this, is the constant I want more, get that, I want more, get that. It's like, I'm gonna get that now, and I'm going on holiday and I'm partying a bit and just enjoying it, and then the next thing. So
yeah, but we always have to have something to push for.
Oh, yeah, yes, I think so. And I do think, I mean, I've experienced that in the female psychology, but it's particularly the male psychology. You know, men like mission, men like doing things with other guys, You know what I
Yes,
mean?
yes,
Like
I completely understand. Because,
there's
for
yeah,
example, when I go to the gym, now I can go to the gym with my wife and it's nice and she can spot for me. And the motivation that I get from her, mediocre, right? She's a wonderful person. But if I
yes,
go with one of my male friends to the gym, it's bravado. It's like, let's lift some
it's
heavy
on.
weights. Let's
Yeah, it's different
grow.
energy.
Different energy. So men can push men. And that's why I find it so important to have a male coach teach other men. Not saying that a woman can't, but
Oh
to
God, I
have,
mean, I know a number of female coaches that coach men,
mhm, yeah,
and
me,
yeah, offer that different angle,
myself
and
too.
provide something different.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's very important.
Yeah,
Um,
and it depends on personality because
that's
because there's going to be some men who are going to be more in touch with their feelings. Some are going to be more gun ho. I'm a guy. I do all the guy things. I need a
mhm.
guy to tell me, all right, this is how I need to fix my life. And they might subconsciously, if they have a female coach, not want to take as much action. Similar to if I was at the gym with my wife and I might not want to take as much action. If I had you as a coach and you were my fitness trainer in the gym, of course you're going to push me more than my wife. Even though she has my goals, even though she knows what I'm supposed to be doing, you're going to push me a little bit more, and it's just the psychosis on it.
Yeah, I mean, it depends what's on the line, Michael. I mean, if it's like who's doing the washing next week, you might
Hmm.
you, you might get a few extra reps in. But
Yeah.
no, I completely understand
Hmm.
the psychology, and I mean, I've experienced that myself in being part of men's groups for many years. I
Hmm.
still am today. I will always be. You know, there's something about sitting in a group, sitting in a room with a group of guys.
Hmm.
You know, speaking one's truth. That it's it, and it harks back to you know where we've come from in terms of biology and back in the day, the village men out. I mean, women used to go. They're proven now. Women used to go out and hunt as well,
Hmm.
but you know, men sitting around the fire, the bonding
Hmm.
it's hardwired in many ways
Do
into
you,
our. There is something that happens, you know, in that with a group of guys, particularly guys who are supporting one another, that's very
mhm.
special, and is exactly the same I've heard from the female side as well. A group of women, all champion and then aligned.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Do you think that's a lost tradition that's gone, that men coming together, speaking, being open? Do you think that's kind of
No,
shut?
because I'm part. I do it once a month, and
Hmm.
there is an organisation here that facilitates daily men speak.
Hmm.
Shout out to them. Meetup group. If guys are interested in exploring more about men's groups, www.mensgroups.co.uk.
Hmm.
Um,
Is that
yeah,
online? Can someone join like a Zoom call, or is
yeah.
it something that's like, okay, so it's like a Zoom call, so people can go on.
It's online and in person, depending on the
Hmm.
current government regs.
Okay. Can
But yeah,
yeah, share that website again.
yeah, it's www.mensgroups.co.uk.
Wow, that's going to be such a powerful group because here in America, we don't necessarily have that. And it's going to be different, just in different regions. We, of
Hmm.
course, we can have church groups
Hmm.
from, like if you're in a church group, AA meetings, things like that,
Hmm.
for support. But we don't necessarily have group that help men
Hmm.
grow to talk and to be open with each other. Now it's
Hmm.
starting to happen a little bit more. It's starting to become more common. But there was a
Yes.
time when it was shied upon. You don't
Hmm.
talk about your feelings, you keep them
No.
locked up. And if you want to talk about them, then you can go talk to your mom, right? Like it was like that. But now people are starting to open up. And I find that one on one is a little bit easier when I
Hmm.
when I'm talking to men because they
Hmm.
can tell me exactly how they're feeling. They can go as deep as they want. They know I'm not going to tell the world about
Hmm.
what they told me. They feel safe,
Hmm.
and that's
Hmm.
and that's important in coaching for them to feel
Oh.
safe and to have trust in you.
Hmm.
And in a group setting, do you find that it takes a little bit longer to build trust and for people to open up than your one-on-ones?
I'd say I mean, I'd say it probably takes a bit more to. I mean, it takes a lot. At least in my experience, it took a lot for me to get in front of another guy and just say
Mm-hmm.
what's going on for me. And it can be very daunting to go and sit with a group of guys and
Mm-hmm.
say what's going on.
Yeah.
Um, that saying, once the conversation starts, sometimes the power of the group can kind of, or yeah, just having the energy, the presence of the group can really help to unpack. But yeah, one-to-one has obviously that more intimacy. So I think it's a personal piece. I'd probably say one-to-one is maybe less uncomfortable in the beginning. But the group certainly has its place. And yeah, I have been part of a men's group for the last 10 years, and I will be for the rest of my life as an attendee, like, and have run some groups in the past and done some training, and yeah, so yeah.
Yeah, very good. And you said you also do coaching, or you do mental health for a sports team.
Yeah,
can you elaborate on that a little bit?
I can, yeah. So a couple of years ago, I did some initial training with an organization called Positive Intelligence around a concept of mental fitness. And so I've sort of trained with that, have continued to train with that organization and run their 6-week coaching program around developing positivity in particular as a strength, as a pillar of mental fitness. So it's called Positive Intelligence. And so yeah, I work with guys around that, if that's what they want to focus on. Worth a Sherzad Shaman. You can check him out. He's Harvard, New York Times bestseller, all the usual deal. So if you're interested in finding out more, but yeah, so and yeah, it's sort of recently, yeah, I have a passion for sports. I love American football. I have relatives in Pittsburgh, and I'm a Steelers fan, and so and in the NFL, you know, it's a big deal over here these days. American football, there's a growing. And so, so I work with the players around mental fitness. Sort of, it's more coach mentoring, with a focus on things such as like confidence and managing injury and being organised around training and those sorts of things. So yeah, sports, that kind of sports psychology.
Are you familiar with Tim Grover? He was
Yes.
He was the coach who coached Michael Jordan.
Yes.
And
yes, I know of him.
And of course, Michael Jordan had his basketball coach, but he hired Tim to be his personal coach, and Tim helped him elevate. Do you do things like that also, would you say?
I do at a far on a far smaller scale. So I have little micro sort of half-hour sessions that the players can book in with me, and we work around those sorts of themes. But it's quite a new area of work for me. So it's something that I'm sort of developing over time, and would like to do more of in the future. In terms of working with my type of coaching and sports. But I really like mental fitness as a concept, and I think one of my values and passions is to be proactive around one's mental health. And I think that there's a real opportunity in mental fitness to strengthen one's mental health almost, and then reduce the propensity for damaging and toxic mental health later on. And so the way, let me say this, Michael, like, the way that physical training reduces your propensity for physical injury, what I'm inviting here is that mental training can reduce the propensity for mental injury and of difficult mental health problems. And I'm a big advocate for getting in front of this stuff, and I see a lot of health problems here dealt with after the horse has bolted. And there's definitely a piece for me further down the line around educating people around being proactive around this stuff, so that when the storms come, and they will, that we're well armed and in a better place to handle the inevitable challenges of life.
Yeah, definitely. And I find that people don't come to me to be proactive. They come to me after a trauma. So they had some type of hardship, some type of challenge, some type of trauma, some type of negativity, that they come to me and they say, hey, Mike, I have this problem, right? Whether it be relationship, career, it doesn't matter. They have a problem that they want to have a solution for. It
Hmm.
took a problem for them to come to see me. Now,
Yes.
do you go see your dentist when you have a problem, or do you be proactive and you go see your dentist every 4 to 6 months, right? I hope you
Yes.
see your dentist every 4 to 6 months because it doesn't feel good to have a root canal, or it doesn't feel good to have pain in your mouth and have to deal with a
Hmm.
cavity. So we're
Hmm.
proactive on that. And people don't realize, in order to be proactive and to prevent harm and decay from happening in our life, we have to take time each and every day. So if you brush your teeth once every 6 months, you're going to have cavities, you're going to need root canals, right? But if
Yep.
you take this a minute a day, 2 minutes a day, brushing your teeth, flossing your teeth for
Hmm.
6 months, it's not that big of a deal. So we broke that down, and now when we see our dentist in 6 months, everything's good. You don't need any fillings. You're good to go.
Hmm. Hmm.
Keep up the good work. Yet we allow life to just barrage us, and every single day we just allow it. So we don't brush our teeth every single day, right? In the sense of we don't
Hmm.
take care of our mental fitness every single day.
Yes.
And the
Yes.
decay starts to kick in, right? You
Hmm.
said the
Hmm.
toxicity starts to formulate and starts to get to levels now it's harming us.
Hmm.
And if we think about sports, for example, if a basketball player or football player, doesn't matter if they missed a goal, right?
Hmm.
How's that going to affect them? They're going to say, man, I'm no good. That negativity starts to roll in their mind. Now, they can always switch that and say, next time I'm going to do it. Next time I'm going to do it. And they can have that forward thinking, that positivity. But there's many players who are not mentally fit who are going to allow that negativity to take over. And that's going to have a detriment on their career. And that is why so many careers end within just a few years, because they're not able to keep up with their mental health. And such
Yes.
yeah, it's such a big proponent in men's coaching to work on mental health, because if men are under the stigma that they need to be leaders, they need to be mentally ready to do what a leader has to do.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, it's about for yeah, sort of arming oneself for those moments.
Hmm.
And I think one of the shifts that I've noticed in recent time, and particularly sort of having done this training, is the development of neuroscience and
Mm-hmm.
neuroplasticity, as to consider, neuroplasticity is the ability for the brain to um, essentially break and rewire.
Hmm.
It's never not at the center.
Yeah.
That's why our mates, our friends are at their essence going to be the same
Hmm.
once they hit a certain age, and that. But then over time, it's exciting. Neuroplasticity is the muscle is essentially could be seen like the muscles of the brain,
Hmm.
and so by practicing in this way, we can essentially rewire our brains over time. And the
Mm.
exciting thing about neuroplasticity is, unlike muscles that do unfortunately break down over time, I'm not going to be able to bench as much.
Hmm.
I can't bench as much now as I used to when I was in my 20s,
Hmm.
and won't be when I'm 60. Neuroplasticity goes on. They've studied brain scans of 90-year-olds
Mm.
who can continue with this. So it's a really exciting time, I think, in this
Mm.
space. And I certainly don't have all the answers, but I'm definitely curious to continue to explore and evolve my knowledge and awareness around this, because I
Mm.
think it's a really important part of the future, and has a, particularly in education as well,
Hmm.
which I know is a value of yours, in terms of, yeah, getting this stuff in early,
Yeah,
so that
that's
mental
a
fitness becomes like brushing our teeth.
yes, exactly, exactly. And I work with mindsets too. And I
Yes.
understand in order to change a mindset, you do have to tear down what was there, right? So
Hmm.
if you have a mind that's not necessarily what you want it to be, changing that wiring in your mind is difficult. It takes time. It's
Oh,
not
it's a
it's
practice.
it's not something you can just do in a month or in maybe even a year. Sometimes it takes years for you just to start to see the change happening, because the mind is just layers on layers on layers of development.
Hmm.
And that's going to be a whole series of things. I I talk about that on my podcast a lot, just how the brain is
Hmm.
formulated and then where our mind
Yeah.
is.
Hmm.
Because where you are today doesn't mean you have to be there in 5 years. You choose. So you just have to make up that choice. You have to say, okay, well, where do I want to be? And people don't ask themselves that question because they understand where they are to where they want to be requires a lot of work. There's a lot of obstacles. And people have that sense of fear. So if
Mhm.
someone had that sense of fear, what would you tell them? How would you help them get over that fear to go after their best life, their careers that they're aiming for, etc.?
Well, I have that fear.
We all do. We all do, but all have to get over it.
Well, exactly, that's naming it. And I wouldn't even say get over it. I'd say carry it along with us and
Mm,
be with it. Um, because where there's fear, there's growth.
hmm
Um, and I think also, if the fear is overwhelming,
hmm
like let's tune it down a bit. Like let's maybe step a bit. But
hmm
where's the 2%?
Right.
I think something I've had experience of is the fears too, it's overwhelming in
hmm
terms of thinking about the top of the mountain, for example. But let's like break it right down to just the first little bit.
hmm
I'm there's still some fear there, but I reckon I can get up that first little side bit of the mountain. So we'll go up
hmm
there first.
Yeah.
And that can be there, but then when I do confront that fear, there's a little bit less there
Mm,
in terms of edge, and then I'll go along. So it's about breaking down that fear and finding one's edge.
right.
And one's edge, people's edges are very different. One person's edge might be going to the shop to buy milk, and
hmm
that might be a massive edge for them.
hmm
And another person might be stepping in front of 2,000 people and singing on stage.
Mm,
The biology, the things that are going to be going on within the person's exactly the same. So there's
hmm
all these different levels. So it's a very personal piece.
right.
Um, but if there is fear there, well, congratulations, you're a human being.
hmm
Indication of growth. Let's explore that fear. Let's
Right.
break it down. Let's get in relationship to it,
hmm
and
Yeah.
and look at how we can, mold, take edges off. And
hmm
again, it's a practice. It's work.
hmm
But that's my experience of it. Sometimes I get it right, and sometimes I'm too scared.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And every day is going to be a learning day. Like we can't let a bad day influence the rest of our life. If we don't show up, right? The idea of showing up for the day, it doesn't mean we failed. And failure is such a big proponent to fear because people don't want
mhm,
to fail, so they fear failure, so they don't even try. They
mhm,
stay exactly where they are. They stay unhappy. They stay
mhm,
unmotivated, and they think
mhm.
that's okay. So, in our last 2 minutes of this interview, what can you tell people, men, doesn't matter, how can they begin to go after the life that they should be living?
I think I'd invite a reframe on the word should,
Mm-hmm.
and call that a want, to
Mm-hmm.
take away the judgment there. Um, and yeah, there's get curious about that.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my old mentors, Kenny, used to say, where energy flows, things grow. So getting clear on that want, or at least a little bit of that want, it
Mm-hmm.
might be like the first step. It doesn't have to be the whole want, but I just starting to explore that want,
Mm-hmm.
and then putting energy into that,
Okay.
and looking at, yeah, if it's possible, investing in some form of coaching support.
Mm.
We can't. I have two coaches, one life coach, one exec coach. I invest heavily in coaching myself,
Mm-hmm.
and so I can't see the picture if I'm in the frame.
Mm.
So if you can get a second set of eyes on, then that's going to massively help you as you kind of start to move forwards.
Mm-hmm.
So when we're accountable outside of ourselves, that science has proven that increases our propensity for moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to go it alone. Get curious, and keep scratching that itch.
Mm-hmm.
Like keep going at it, and yeah. Check out Michael Reardon's podcasts and videos.
Oh, no, no, no.
Shoot pops.
Yeah, thank you, thank you, thank you. Tell everyone where they can find you.
Cool. Yeah. So I'm over at the MAP Men's Action Project. That's over at www.mensactionproject.com.
Mm-hmm.
That's where my men's life coaching services are. You can find me on the socials, Clive Maxheath, on the various sort of LinkedIn, Instagram,
Mm-hmm.
various bits and pieces. But yeah, all the bits and pieces regarding me are there if you wanna check that out.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Clive, for being a guest on my podcast. And I hope that this interview is going to bring you business. You can use this video for your website if you need to, just to say that you're on something, and hopefully it just brings about more abundance in your life.
Yeah, pleasure, Michael. It's been it's been a real joy, and all the best in your own work. There's definitely some synchronicities between our respective missions and our values, and it's been a real honor to share the space. And I wish you all the best in your own endeavors over the other side of the pond there.
Thank you so much.
Cheers, Michael.
All right. All right, I want to thank my guest, Clive Maxheath, for being a guest on Coaching in Session. What a great interview that was. And I want everyone, if what he said resonated with you, reach out to him. Just start a conversation. Because I can't tell you how many conversations I start with just a complimentary session, and people can get a good understanding of where they need to be. And I'm only one person. I know I can't change the world by myself. So that's why I bring coaches onto the platform, onto the podcast, so they can speak too, so their voice can be heard. Because there's going to be people in the world that are willing to help, that want to help you rise up. And you don't have to give up any type of monetary thing. Clive has blogs, YouTube channel. Same thing with me. I have a YouTube channel, blogs, motivational videos. They're all there free of charge. And you just have to go out and find that information. Next week, we will be talking about what went on this week. I wanted to talk about it today, but the interview does have to come on Fridays. So it's going to maybe happen on Monday, if not Monday, latest Wednesday. So stay tuned for that. And until then, everyone, take care.